Today we have with us very renowned author Amitabha Bagchi ji with his lovely book Unknown City. So welcome sir, how do you like it here?
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here at the BooksWagon stall at the book fair. It's great to see so many people looking to buy books. Nothing that warms a writer's heart more than the sight of people buying books.
Great. So tell us a little about your book.
Unknown City is my new novel. It is actually a sequel to a novel that I published in 2007 called Above Average, in which there is a character called Arindam Chatterjee. And in that book, we saw him at IIT, his struggles at IIT. And in this book, he has graduated from IIT and he's gone to the US to study, get his PhD. And that book was about his relationships with male friends. This book is about his relationships with women. And unfortunately, all of these relationships are failed relationships. So he's looking back at he's older now, and he's looking back at the relationships, the failed relationships that he had with women when he was in his 20s and in his early 30s.
Okay, so talking about relationships, what do you think that's one thing that is really affecting the relationships of youngsters out there?
I think the key problem is that men and women consider each other to be different in their thinking, and men particularly don't put in the effort to understand what women are thinking, and women don't understand why men don't understand them. So I think that if you think about your own relationships, or if I think about mine, I think the key problem is that we don't introspect enough. That if someone is saying something, am I hearing what they are saying, or am I hearing what I want to hear? That is the question that Arindam is now looking back at those times and saying, oh, when she said this, what she meant was this, but what I thought was something else.
Okay, great. So, since this is a sequel, was it tough to write, going back to those emotions and coming back to this?
Yeah, well, see, that book happened a long time back in 2007, and it was a bestseller at that time. And that was a time there were a lot of books being written about places like IIT and all that, and it was a different feeling then. Today, the world has moved on, and in a way, what I understood was that we have to look at these questions today. These questions of how are men and women getting along? Are relationships succeeding or are they failing? Right? These are questions that are important. So, with that in mind, I had a different idea this time, a different thing to look at.
Okay, so in this modern world where we have speed dating, every other mobile, having all sorts of relationship apps and all, what do you think the relationships now generation faces?
I think the major challenge is precisely this, that they don't have the time to try and connect with another person. Try and spend some time in understanding that person, reaching out, making themselves vulnerable, and supporting the other person. There's no time, and there are too many people, there are too many options. Then there's always another person on the app. The one more swipe can be made.
Exactly.
So this book doesn't talk about those things directly because it's set in a slightly different time, in an older time. But the questions are the same. The context may have changed, but the questions are still the same. That what is it that you want from the other person, and more importantly, what is it that the other person wants from you? These are the questions that we need to answer.
Okay, so how important it is to address that what other persons want from us and how the generation out there can really do it.
See, this is not a self-help book.
Yeah.
This is fiction.
Yeah.
And it is fiction, what we call literary fiction, which is to say that it is supposed to make you think and it's supposed to make you feel. And I think that today, we have self-help all over the place, right? I'm sure BooksWagon is promoting a lot of self-help,
Yeah,
right? But I think the best way to help people is to tell them a story and let them figure out, take their own lessons from it. This is how it was done traditionally in all societies. I would tell you a story of Ramayana or Mahabharata, and from that story you will take take that story, connect it to your own life, and from that your thought process will start. So this is, I'm not going to advise anyone कि ऐसा करना चाहिए या वैसा करना चाहिए. That is not my game. I'm telling the story of Arindam Chatterjee's life. And if something in that connects to your life, then from there your thought process will start. And where it will end, that you know.
Okay, so what is the one thing that connects us to this story the most?
I think we are all looking for love in this world. We are all looking for love and we are all looking for understanding. And that is also what Arindam is looking for. He's looking for understanding, but from both sides. He's looking to be understood, but he is also looking to understand the people whom he meets. So I think that these are universal needs. The need for love and the need for understanding are universal. And so hopefully, if people pick up this book, they will see something of their own self and their own needs reflected in it.
Okay. So the book is also having a very good cover. Is there any story behind it?
Yeah. There is a story behind it. So this is the cover. So the artist is Devangana Das. She's the cover designer at HarperCollins. So the story is something like this: that my editor Dharini and I was giving Dharini some ideas, and she was feeding those ideas to Devangana. And I said it should be like this, it should be like that, and Devangana said, conveyed the message that I'm not interested in any of this. And then she came back with this. And at first I was like, ye kya hai? And then I realized her vision working inside. And the funny thing, the same thing happened with the prequel, Above Average, 18 years ago.
Okay.
My editor and I were telling the artist, there was an artist called Munis, that aisa hona chahiye, waisa hona chahiye, and the discussion was going nowhere. And eventually Munis said, let me be. He went away, 2 days there was no email, nothing. Then he came back with a cover image, which was so stunning that everyone appreciated it. So I think I am lucky, as a writer, we work alone. But when an artist like the cover designer Devangana comes on board and brings her vision and adds her vision, which is a response to my vision, then I really feel good. And she is my peer, she's a colleague in the arts, but in a different art. So I respect her for it, and I'm very happy she contributed this.
Lovely. No, the cover is absolutely fantastic. So, lastly, I would like to ask you: is there any reader's review, or somebody just read the book and came to you and said something to you that totally changed your perspective, or while writing this book, does the perspective evolve?
Actually, there is a story in this book. You will see when my first book, Above Average, came out. One of my professors, she read it and she said the female characters in this are not well developed at all, and that kind of stung me a little bit. So this time, I carried that with me for 15-20 years, and this time I've tried to go deeper into the female characters. I don't believe that men write very good female characters, but I do believe they should be given the opportunity to try. So I have tried, and whether I've succeeded or not, that's for readers to judge.
Definitely, you will succeed.
I hope so.
Yeah, we also hope so. Great. So, lastly, if you could, sum up your book in one sentence or one word, what would that be?
See, let's be very clear. If I could sum it up in one sentence,
Why would you write a book?
But if I do try, I would say that.
You can take a few sentences as well.
No, you should never give a writer the opportunity to take few sentences.
But let's be generous.
Many sentences. So I think if I would sum it up, it is about that. That when we look out, when we seek out love and understanding, then what is it that we have to give in return to get that? That is the question that each one of us must ask ourselves. That's the question Arindam Chatterjee in this book asks himself.
Lovely. So lastly, if you could also give a shout out to BooksWagon.
I'm very happy to be on BooksWagon's stage. BooksWagon is a major retailer. Without people like BooksWagon, people like me are just sitting in our room plugging away at our laptop. So thank you, BooksWagon. And to all the viewers out there, please check out BooksWagon. You will find a lot of good stuff there, including my book.
So if you do seek love in your life, Go check it out and please order this book from our website. Thank you so much, sir. It was lovely.
Thanks, Meghna. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Hi, my name is Amitabha Bagchi. I am the author of Unknown City, book which just came out earlier this year. So, Unknown City is actually my fifth novel, and so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my other books and how I came to the point of writing this book. My first novel was called Above Average. It was set at IIT, and it was the story of Arindam Chatterjee, a young man struggling with his sort of conflicting desires. On the one hand, he's at IIT, wants to be a computer scientist. On the other hand, he has an interest in music. He also wants to be a writer, and how he struggles through IIT and what he learns about life over there. That came out in 2007, and then my own life took me. I went to the US. I got my PhD. I came back and started working in India at IIT Delhi, and I encountered a lot of bureaucracy over there, and that got me thinking. And I started writing. I wrote a novel called The Householder, which is about Naresh Kumar, who is the PA to a IAS officer, and because of getting involved in a corruption case, he gets suspended from his job. And that was a story of how a man is stuck between his what is right and what his family needs. Kind of like a harking back to Valmiki's story about sinning for his family. So The Householder was a book set inside, the government office in Delhi. But at that time, I had returned from the US, and I was still in mind of the city that I had lived in and studied in, a city called Baltimore, which is on the east coast of the US. And I wrote a story called This Place, which is about these 2 or 3 houses in one not very rich neighborhood of Baltimore, which is being taken over by the city because they want to demolish it and redevelop it. It's a kind of story that is happening all over the world, in Dharavi today, in Bombay, and in many places in the West. And it's about this Indian man, this young white couple, and this old black lady who are facing up to the fact that their house is going to be demolished. So that was my third novel. After that, there was a little bit of a break, and then I wrote a novel called Half the Night is Gone, which was different from the first 3 that I'd written. Half the Night is Gone was kind of came out of my reading of Indian literature, Urdu poetry, which I love dearly, Hindi poetry, and it's basically kind of a response in some sense to the Ramayana. It's a story of two brothers who are the sons of old Delhi merchant in the 1940s, and it is written in retrospect by a Hindi novelist called Vishwanath, who grew up in a house like that in Old Delhi in the 30s and 40s. So Half the Night is Gone is something about family, about duty, about poetry, and that's what that book was about. And it's also about family bonds and what they mean. It was probably one of the most emotionally charged books that I have written. It was quite a journey writing it. After that, my love for Urdu poetry took me further into the ghazals of Munir Niazi, and I translated the ghazals of Munir Niazi under the title Lost Paradise, and that was a fantastic experience for me because translation is the most intimate way of reading something, and the ghazals of Munir Niazi, which I love deeply, I got to translate them, which means I got to live them again in the language that I live in, which is English. So after that, I was struggling to find what I wanted to write, and the pandemic came in. And the pandemic was a time in which everyone's thought process went in many different directions, and many people's thought process went inwards. And when I went inwards, I realized that the unfinished business of Above Average was what happens to Arindam Chatterjee afterwards. In IIT, when Arindam was in IIT, all his relationships were with men. There were men everywhere in that book. So I went back to Arindam Chatterjee's life after IIT, and I went into the relationships he had with women, and that is what is the content of this book, where Arindam realizes that all his relationships that he had in his 20s failed because he fundamentally did not understand what it is that the women he was trying to make a life with, trying to make a relationship with, what those women wanted. So as he goes back over those times, rereads the emails from the past, remembers particular incidents, particular things that were said, he begins to see that he was focused on what he wanted to become. As a result, he missed what they wanted. So this book is Arindam's. It's written in Arindam's voice, and it's Arindam's attempt to go back and understand what happened. Why could he not figure out what these women wanted, and what was it that they did want? So that's it. That's the most recent book, Unknown City. I hope you all enjoy it, and I hope knowing a little bit about my past work gives you the context of what this book is about. Thanks.